Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, Vice President Sara Duterte has withdrawn her request for confidential funds, but a Senate leader says there is no assurance it will not be restored in the bicam committee. The revised Maharlika Fund implementing rules relaxes board qualifications. And also an uproar over China's latest aggressive action against Philippine vessels in Ayungin Shoal. Senate Minority Leader Koko Pimentel joins us in the program. Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte may have withdrawn her request for confidential funds for the OVP and DepEd, but a lawmaker urges the public to remain vigilant in monitoring the budget process. Senate Minority Leader Koko Pimentel says there is no assurance the confidential funds will not be restored in the bicam conference committee. He also says he is ready to question President Bongbong Marcos's request for 2.3 billion pesos in intelligence funds before the Supreme Court. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Senate Minority Leader Koko Pimentel. Senator, thanks for taking this interview. I know you are on your way to the Senate, I guess for the budget deliberation, sir?
Yes, that's correct, Pinky. We will start at 10 o'clock.
Okay, so there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to start with the Vice President's confidential funds. So as mentioned a while ago, and of course last week, the Vice President has already withdrawn her request of 500 million pesos for confidential funds for the OVP and 150 million confidential funds for the DepEd, to which, just going back, sir, the small committee already removed at the lower house and previously adopted by senators last week. So just siguro, is this the end, sir? To be clear, of the confidential funds for the OVP and DepEd?
Hopefully, given also the manifestation by the Vice President as the Vice President and then the Vice President as the Secretary of Education. She told the Senate, I do not want those funds. So hopefully this will be the end of the controversy surrounding the proposed million financial funds for the Vice President year 24, the 150 million confidential fund for the Secretary of the Department of Education for 2024.
Do you see any possible concerns during bicam? We're going to try to get Senator Koko Pimentel back on the line. Sir, unfortunately, the line is a bit choppy right now. Okay, we're going to try to do a phone patch instead because the Senator is on his way to the Senate for budget deliberations. I think he's back. Senator, can you hear me? All right, we'll try to get a better line. So basically,
yes.
the Senator, andyan na po kayo.
Yes.
All right. Unfortunately, we're having a bit of a problem trying to get the Senator on the phone. So just to recap, it's really first a question of basically the Senator saying that since the Vice President has said that she's dropping her plans for these confidential funds for the OVP and the Department of Education amounting to 650 million pesos, the Senator believes that this should end the discussion on confidential funds requested by the Office of the Vice President and the Education Department for 2024. But there's still a lot to talk about. We got cut when I was trying to ask the Senator, is this, does he see any concerns during the bicam? And I think he's on the line right now. Senator, can you hear me?
Yes, Pinky.
Okay, so ang tanong ko na lang po, Senator Koko, meron po ba kayong nakikitang posibleng problema pa or concern sa bicam?
Well, maraming concern sa bicam kasi the Senate version is not exactly the same as the House of Representatives version. So, we will have to try to harmonize these different provisions. But when it comes to
But I'm only talking about the VP confidential fund, sir. I'm going to talk about other
wala
things
na.
later.
Wala na dapat.
Okay.
I'll just point out a minor detail. Yung 150 million kasi na confidential fund of the DepEd remained in the budget of the DepEd but no longer as confidential fund. But in the House version, the 150 went to a different program, the government assistance
to students and
private,
teachers.
Yes, to students in private schools, private education. Sa Senate naman, there was a request by the Vice President, the Secretary of Education, to put it sa National Learning Recovery Program.
That's right.
Yun, minor,
Yeah.
minor na lang yun. Hindi na siya confidential fund.
Opo.
And then the decision to the both chambers naman is the amount should remain with the DepEd. Ang tanong na lang, which particular program?
Yes, actually that's my next question. There was a difference or is a difference between the House version kasi nung nagka-small committee po at tinanggal yung 150 million in confidential funds, ni-realign po ng House ito for the government assistance to students in private education programs. But when the Vice President appeared at the Senate, ang request po niya is to align it dun sa tinatawagan na National Learning Recovery Program. So,
Correct.
I want to just clarify, sir, did the Senate agree with this request na ilagay na lang po dito sa National Learning Recovery Program?
Wala namang objectionable doon kasi ang decision naman is to let the 150 remain with the DepEd.
Okay.
So gagastusin din ng DepEd, although siyempre now-audit na yan in the regular way.
Opo, kasi hindi na pupasok sa confidential fund. So it's just a matter of bicam saan talaga mapupunta ito.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the petition, the Supreme Court petition on the 150 million OVP Confi fund. So of course, sir, you do know that a group of lawyers and experts filed a petition before the Supreme Court seeking to declare yung pong pag-transfer ng 125M from the Office of the President to the OVP as unconstitutional, and in fact went on to ask for the OVP to return the money to the National Treasury. Sir, there's a lot of things to be discussed here. Can this be, ang tanong ho kasi until now is that, will this finally put an end to the question if the transfer or release, kasi the DBM is calling it not transfer but release, can this be done utilizing the contingent fund, for example, from the Office of the President to the Office of the Vice President in the form of a confidential fund that was not part or did not have a line item in the budget in 2022?
Okay, number one, I am not a party to the case. Okay? Iba po ang mga petitioners dyan. And then number two, siguro if this case will be decided by the Supreme Court, at least we will enrich our knowledge about the nature of the contingent fund. Yan, di ba? And then the releases from the contingent fund are these transfers or releases. So, pero at any rate, mas mabigat na issue kasi is whether it is a transfer or a release. Can you release to an agency for something na hindi naman pinunduhan ng Kongreso? Mm-hmm. Ganun yun eh. Parang there might be some overruling of a legislative policy or a legislative decision. Pagdating sa budget, dapat supreme ang legislative decision eh. So sabi ng Congress, when we look at the entire government bureaucracy, ito ang aming pag-design niyan, itong opisina na ito, we did not give even 1 peso. Walang piso eh. If you want to keep an item alive, lalagyan mo ng bahay so that it can be augmented later on. Lalagyan mo dapat ng amount. So piso, 10 piso, 1,000,000, 1,000,000, yan. Kung zinero, ibig sabihin kung zero, hindi lumalabas yan sa line item sa isang government agency, it was the legislative will na wag siyang bigyan ng any amount of this nature. Ganon yun. So So the President cannot overrule even Congress and then say na, hindi, babaguhin ko yung budget law, dapat binibigyan yan. Ay, hindi po pwede.
Yeah, because madalas naman po talagang sabihin at alam natin that Congress has the power of the purse. Kaya nga po, that's why I started that question with, yun na nga po, can a release or transfer be made to something that was not included in the budget that had been passed? So, I guess in a way, sir, sabi mo nga, this will define, if the Supreme Court makes a decision on this, it will define contingency funds, and if our
Yes.
transfers or releases are
Yes.
proper. But I guess what what is questionable for me, sir, is that is it possible for the is it possible for the Supreme Court to say that this is parang a question between the executive and the legislative, and the judiciary cannot intervene? Is there such a thing?
Hindi na. Siguro if it were the amount of the contingency fund, yan, political question na yan. What the funds will be for. Pero may meron ng action eh. There is already executive action executing the budget. So that is the one being questioned. Na meron pong lumipat na halaga galing sa contingent at naglanding OVP. Tapos ganito po yung mga facts. Yan yung facts eh.
Opo.
Tinanggap at trinato na confidential fund, although pag tignan mo yung budget ng OVP noong 2022, wala namang nakabanggit doon na confidential fund. Ni piso, wala. So zero yun, actually zero. I-assume, pag hindi nabanggit yung linya sa budget, zero yun. Ayun, hindi mo pwedeng i-assume na may laman yun. Zero. So,
Yeah.
yun po yung legal issue. At maganda naman na legal issue. Yung depensa lang na kung transfer ba or release. Kasi kung transfer, mas mabigat. Meron pang additional requirements. Kasi savings, augmentation, gano'n. Pero kung release, pursuant to the three main purposes ng contingent fund, meron pa rin sub-issue dun. Ang contingent fund kasi, auditable yan in the regular manner. Diba? Ngayon, kung i-release mo yan, kung papayagan natin na i-release yan as confidential fund, ibig sabihin nun, binabago mo yung nature ng fund. From a regularly auditable amount, magiging special audit proceedings siya. Diba? Yun eh. Yan yung issue. Kung papayag tayo ng ganyang reasoning, so theoretically speaking, yung 13 trillion na contingent fund, pwede palang ma-convert into a CIF. Binabantayan na natin ang level ng CIF, 10 billion yan eh. Sa buong budget, 10 billion. So mas malaki pa pala, itong contingent fund na hindi natin binabantayan, mas malaki pa, 13 billion. So those will be the implications of the theories of the DBM.
It would be quite interesting, sir, to see how the Supreme Court will rule on this. Now, you were saying also that the approval of the Intel funds to the Office of the President, we're going to shift to the Office of the President. Sabi niyo po, is wrong and misplaced. But we need to take a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Senate Minority Leader Koko Pimentel. Senator, so we're going to drop the confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President and DepEd. We're going to move to the Office of the President. Here's the thing, and I want to make this clear, sir. Dito po sa Office of the President, what you're questioning is the approval of the Intel funds
Yes.
to the OP, not the confidential funds, sir.
Yes,
Tama ba?
not the confidential fund. But,
Okay.
but as far as the confidential funds are concerned, I'm also questioning the level, the amount, because we all must be reasonable.
Okay.
Kasi the confidential fund of the Office of the President is at 2.2 billion pesos. Imagine niyo gaano kalaki yan, 2.2 billion pesos confidential fund. And then this is supplemented by a 2.3 billion pesos intelligence fund for the Office of the President. Okay. So, para klaro, Pinky, my objection to the confidential fund for the Office of the President is the
Amount.
is the tremendous amount, yeah, the gigantic amount. Ayan. And then ang objection ko sa intelligence fund of the office president is conceptual also. May conceptual problem ako dyan because siyempre we are governed by rules. The circular, there is a 2015 circular which governs the grant and the use and then as well as the liquidation of confidential and intelligence funds. Pagbasahin natin itong circular na ito, which is COA, joint with DBM and other executive departments. Maraming multi-department ito, multi-agency memorandum of circular ito eh. Ang spirit ng intelligence fund, binibigay lang po yan sa mga military na ahensya ng gobyerno, kundi man, kung hindi military, civilian, pero yung naka-uniforme or armado. Or, kung civilian man, intelligence practitioner. Yun. So,
Sino ho sila,
yun ang
Senator? Sino ho sila para malinaw? Yung sa
siyempre,
Intel.
Ang military, klaro na, di ba? Military is Armed Forces of the Philippines. Civilian na uniformed, we have Philippine Coast Guard. NAMRIA is also uniformed. BJMP is uniformed. Bucor is uniformed. Civilian niya mga yan. PNP is uniformed.
Okay.
Uniformed and armed. Tapos meron din tayong armed, which is NBI, civilian din yan. Okay. And then intelligence practitioners. Okay, karamihan ng intelligence practitioners nahanap na natin sa military, sa ISAP. Pero meron din civilian like NICA.
Yeah.
Yan, NICA. So yun. So
sila lahat pasok sa Intel, sir?
Conceptually, kung binibigyan ng Intel funds yung mga yan, sa konsepto, hindi ako nag-object. Sa halaga ngayon ako titingin, di ba? Dalawa kasing levels yan eh. Number one, are you entitled? And then number two, is the amount being given to you reasonable? Di naman pwedeng sky's the limit. Okay. Pagdating sa Office of the President, wag natin i-claim na military office yan kasi masama yun. Kasi sabi ng Constitution, civilian supremacy shall at all times be upheld over the military. So ang i-highlight natin sa karakter ng Office of the President, it is civilian. It is not military. So is it an armed agency? Hindi naman. Is it a uniformed agency? Hindi naman. Is it an intelligence practitioner? Hindi rin. Kasi si Presidente ay consumer ng intelligence. Binibrief na po yan. Hindi na po siya dapat ang nagngongolekta ng intelligence. Ganyan din naman sa United States of America, wag tayong mag-alala. Si President Biden, most powerful country in the world na yan, walang intel funds yan. Pero meron siyang 16 na intelligence agencies sa ilalim niya. Sila ang may intel funds at binibrief nila siya. Ganun po yun.
Hindi ho ba when you brought that up during the budget deliberation, was it Senator Angara, sir, who said that when you brought that up, he said the president is the source and may isa pa siyang ginamit na salita of this information? Hindi ho ba?
Siguro, the source and the user, parang ganon?
Parang ganon po.
Disagree nga ako doon kasi sabi ko nga, hindi pa ba very busy na yung Office of the President? Meron ka pang 2.3 billion na hindi madaling gastusin yung 2.3 billion sa tamang pamamaraan kasi tandaan nyo, if this is confidential at saka intelligence expenses, mga maliliit po na gastos yan, hindi naman bilihan ng mga building. Hindi naman yan nagtatayo ng mga bridge o gumagawa ng mga daan. Hindi po. Purchase of information. Sige nga, parang retail expenses yan. Grabe kadaming purchase of information naman yan. Grabe naman kadaming rental of warehouses yan, rental of vehicles yan. I mean, hindi na paggawain ng Office of the President yan kasi mas malalalim pa dapat dyan ang binibigyan ng pansin ng Office of the President.
So, in that same circular, Senator, that you were talking about, yung sa COA, marami nga pong departments that were part of this, COA, Department of Budget and Management, DILG also, and the DND. So just to be clear on this, I just want to read this part. The said circular states that intelligence funds can only be used for counterintelligence activities and special projects and operations. So let me push that question and bring it back to you. Hindi ho ba kailangan ng Office of the President ang, sabi po, counterintelligence and special projects and operations?
Alam mo, yung mga intelligence agencies kasi under the control yan ng Presidente. Utusan niya. Siya nagagawa. Utusan po niya.
Sabi mo nga, I think also during the budget deliberation or some news items, sir, that I read, kasi we really have to distinguish the difference of intelligence and confidential funds because sometimes na ano po sila, no?
Naghahalo.
Naghahalo. So sabi niyo po, ito po yung medyo naintindihan kong part nung sinabi niyo na siya po ay executive. He has the whole executive at his disposal. Sabihin
Correct.
po natin, yung sinabi niyo po na nangangailangan o maaaring makatanggap ng intelligence funds such as military, yung uniform personnel, isa-isayin na pa natin, PNP, AFP, NBI, Coast Guard, etc. Basically, you were saying that lahat ito pwede naman po niyang gamitin para sa intelligence and counterintelligence para po sa kanya. Tama ho ba?
Correct. Yan ang understanding ko. Automatic na yung intelligence and counterintelligence. Oo. Kasi intelligence, counterintelligence is also intelligence work. The same thing, except that yung sa pagkakaintindi ko, ang counterintelligence yata, you check your own people na integridad ng organization mo intact pa. Di ba? Yung trustworthiness ng organization mo.
Okay.
That is counterintelligence for me.
Okay. So puntahan natin, sir.
Activities would be the same.
So let's go to the confidential funds, sir. It is described here. Ito naman po, yung confi funds can be used to purchase information necessary in the implementation of a government program, among others.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Okay, could you kindly, in layman's term, explain the difference of the two? Intel and confi, sir.
Hello. Oh, parang overlapping na yan eh. Kaya, bakit kasi surveillance ang why you're surveilling someone or some area information that's already in. So, ang main difference talaga niyan, recipient of the fund. That's why we have to make it very clear na if you're a civilian, you are not law enforcement, you are not armed, you are not uniformed, the best that you can hope for is confidential fund. Imposible kang humingi ng intelligence fund. Kasi nga sa nature, rinireserba natin yun sa military, law enforcers, uniformed, armed, and intelligence practitioners. Yun po yun. So, ganun lang. Pero pagdating sa gastos, kung titignan natin, pag liquidate nito, may overlap na yan eh. Nag-overlap.
The confidential intelligence funds. Okay.
Yes, so kasi isa surveillance, nag-rent kami ng safe house, nag-rent kami ng mga sasakyan. Ganun din man ang intel, di ba? How do you gather information? Meron ka rin purchase of information, may sino-surveillance ka rin.
Yeah. So, actually, that's why I was asking really what the main difference of the intel and confidential funds are. Senator, I just need to take another short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Senate Minority Leader Koko Pimentel. Sir, just to further this topic, are you ready to question this before the Supreme Court again? To summarize that, you are questioning the Intel Fund of the Office of the President and the huge amount, sabi mo nga, of the confidential funds. So, I think it was also last week when you said you're urging experts to help you draft a petition. Has anyone actually reached out to you, and do you plan to question this before the Supreme Court anytime soon?
Right now, wala pa. Pero I'm sure meron po mag-question because I will tell you the vulnerabilities of this budget. Number one, it's a certified urgent. What is the public calamity or emergency being certified against? Yan ang tanong. Wala naman eh. And then number two yung number two yung
Unprogrammed appropriations, sir.
Yes, the unprogrammed lumalampak. Pero hindi pa natin nakikita kasi yung final nun. So this is just a conditional objection. Yung unprogrammed, should it follow follow what happened for 2023 where the final unprogrammed amount was increased by Congress way beyond the amount proposed by the executive. Ang aking may theory is programmed plus unprogrammed is actually appropriations determined by the executive branch as what is needed, what are needed to operate the government. And sabi ng Constitution, Congress cannot propose a higher amount. We can lessen, but we cannot increase. So we have found a way to indirectly increase the budget being proposed by the President by increasing the unprogrammed appropriations way beyond the President's own recommendations. So yan ang number two. And then number three would be the CIF, the Grant of Intelligence Fund to a civilian agency like the Office of the President in an unconscionable amount, tapos the grant of a confidential fund, although conceptually acceptable, but still in an unconscionable amount. So, so these are the three general objections that we can raise.
Yeah. Senator, I wish to speak to you again at another time because we need to talk about the new IRR for the Maharlika Investment Fund, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. Just the same, sir. Senate Minority Leader Koko Pimentel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, sir, and thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.